Hello everyone, and welcome to Season 7, Episode 15 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in CHIKARA history with match number 36 on our list, which is the match between Eddie Kingston and Shane Storm from CHIKARA 2 Eyebrows Are Better Than One event held on January the 27th of 2008. Not really sure if this match can truly be considered a hidden gem because it got some talk at the time, but I feel like it is largely forgotten about. Eddie Kingston has put on some tremendous classic beatings on wrestlers in CHIKARA. And the most famous ones being his, match against Tim Donst in Wallingford, Connecticut, that is still talked about to this day. My good friend Mike Falcone, Mike versus Philly, just mentioned it on Twitter a couple of days ago. But this match, maybe not quite to the level of those ones, but just an all-timer. Eddie Kingston just being a ruthless badass. And what I really love about this match is it really felt like it changed when Shane Storm, got his nose broken very early on in the match. So, I don't know what the plan for this match was, but it was just kind of a random match on a random show that's kind of forgotten about and wasn't that great. I believe it was the season premiere for 2008 for CHIKARA. They were coming off 2007, which kind of sputtered at the end there. There was a season finale that ended with an injury to Lindsay Dorado. And then they had kind of a postseason show that, was Chris Hero's CHIKARA farewell in a really underwhelming match with Claudio Castagnoli. And then we had this show, and it was just a really kind of weird transitional period for CHIKARA. But this match happened on this show. Eddie Kingston was just coming out of a really, I'll call it a blood feud, even though there's no blood, with Hallowicked, basically feuding over who the best CHIKARA student of all time was. And he was, coming into 2008, trying to win King of Trios and win the tag titles and all of this stuff, and put that feud with Hallowicked behind him. This just seemed like it was going to be a random match, a random, step on that path for him against Shane Storm. Shane Storm, if you're unfamiliar with him, the unionized traffic regulator, he was a wrestler that had one of the best moments ever in CHIKARA when he won the Young Lions Cup 3 tournament, defeating Icarus in the finals. But outside of that moment, he was someone that, never totally clicked. He was a little bit of a bigger guy, did the kind of CHIKARA lucha, but sometimes he'd have some slips, and he had this goofy mask, and, he just never really worked. He became Stigma, after a feud with Mike Quackenbush, which was, a big part of that whole CHIKARA special, Eye of Tear, CHIKARA lore, if we want to call it that thing. And just the whole Stigma thing was kind of weird, and the Unstable was kind of a flop of a stable, and he never really, worked outside of that one great moment at the Young Lions Cup 3. So, this match on paper is kind of just like, whatever. But like I said, a good minute, maybe 2 minutes into this match, Eddie Kingston kind of comes off the ropes and hits like a strike to Shane Storm's face, but catches him, I'm going to say inadvertently, right in the nose, and it splatters Shane Storm's nose, and he is bleeding through his mask. And if you're unfamiliar with Shane Storm's mask, he's got this big mustache, which for this match was blonde, so it was dyed completely red, and just a tremendous visual that you can see in the thumbnail for this video. And it made this match, so intense and therefore so memorable. And I've talked so many times on this program about, blood making wrestling better when used properly. Very weird that I'm having this conversation, with myself yet again in a CHIKARA countdown of all things, because that is a promotion, where blood was used so sparingly, never intentionally as far as I'm aware. But here we got it, and Eddie Kingston, one of the best pro wrestlers of his generation, one of the best independent wrestlers of all time. He is in his element here because, like a shark smelling blood in the water, which, he's literally doing, smelling blood, he terrorizes poor Shane Storm in this match. And again, I have no idea what this match would have looked like. Maybe that would have been the story all along, but he is so focused and so dialed in and so aggressive. And Shane Storm just, garners all of this sympathy, being this valiant babyface trying to fight from underneath that's bleeding everywhere. And Kingston is, clawing at the nose and cross faces to the nose and, every shot to the face he can possibly get in. Just becomes ruthless toward the crowd. There's a moment when he leaves Storm and rolls to the floor to jawjack with a fan and, throws the fan's hat across the room. Very old school wild cards, Eddie Kingston. And that allows, Shane to get, a little offensive flurry. This match, though, really kicks into high gear during the closing stretch, the last couple of minutes. They do, big time German suplexes on their heads. And there's a point where Eddie hits like a disgusting lariat to Shane Storm's face, like re-breaking open his nose. There's, no cells and fighting spirit and all of this great stuff. There's a moment where Shane Storm eats a half Nelson suplex and just, fighting spirits up with the blood gushing and hits that Japanese move, which is a great name for a finishing move. It was a Shining Wizard that he would do, and he hits that for 2. Eddie like counters the air raid crash into like a sick backdrop driver. And they're firing on all cylinders, dropping each other on their heads, hitting each other hard. It's really great. It's really compelling, and it feels really different than a lot of CHIKARA matches. We end up, the finish here is just disgustingly brutal as well. The cherry on top of the match, where Shane Storm ducks the back fist from the future, but then Eddie hits it on the other side and just wallops Shane Storm in the face with it, just for a disgustingly fitting finish. That bad nose getting hit once again. This is a match where, there's not a ton of backstory going into it. There's not a ton that comes out of it. It's just a one and done amazing contest that came out of nowhere, that was elevated by the blood. And it's a match that, when I think CHIKARA, and I think 2008 CHIKARA especially, I think of this match. It's great. You can watch it, of course, on independentwrestling.tv. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again next time as we continue the countdown, Pro Wrestling's Top 50.